Hi guys, David here with another science update. So today I'm going to talk about an article called Biotechnological Development of Plants for Space Agriculture. And I'm kind of excited about this partly because the article just came out a few minutes ago, so I think that we might be some of the first people to read it. And the idea is that it's focused on improving certain plants so that they will be ideal crops for cultivating in space or perhaps in space colonies on new planets. What's interesting about this is that, as you'll see from the article, the researchers basically say that to do agriculture in space, we're probably going to have to go all in when it comes to a GMO direction or a genetic modification. So pretty much everything you see here is going to be focused on how to genetically modify an organism, particularly a potato plant, to make it more suitable for meeting the needs of humans in space. The article says, if humankind is ever to undertake long-term space missions and colonization, establishing an efficient space farming system would be essential for human survival in space. However, existing crops are pretty much just not up to the job. So they're proposing this whole body edible and elite plant, or WBEEP strategy, for space crop improvement. So their plan is to start with potato, because it's believed to be one of the top contenders for space agriculture because it has a high harvest index and tuber yield, and carbohydrate-rich tubers can provide a large amount of energy for humans, which makes sense. I mean, potatoes have been a staple crop for many human societies in the past, and so it's a decent starting point. Moreover, it's simple to, from a horticultural standpoint, so it's simple to grow, its needs are low, and it doesn't require a lot of processing. So, for instance, if you think about something like wheat in exchange is probably not a good contender for growing in space because it produces a lot of chaff and other things, and you need to do a lot of processing in order to eat it. The potato you can just dig out of the ground or pull out of the pot if you're doing some kind of hydroponics, and presumably just, cook it. So looking at figure 1, they kind of walk through some of the key strategies that they would employ in their GMO approach. The first one is to develop a whole body edible potato. So generally speaking, when it comes to potatoes, of course, you can eat the potato, but you can't eat the rest of the plant. And the reason is because there's this bio compound called solanine, which is a glycoalkaloid poison found in species of the nightshade family, and you can see the chemical structure down here. Basically, that's to prevent bugs and other predators from eating the plant, and it works really well, but it's also toxic to humans. So one of the first things that they're talking about in making this genetically modified plant would actually be to block the solanine biosynthesis. And the benefit of that would be it would take the whole plant and make it edible. And if you're thinking about the economics of growing food in space, basically any biomass that you can't consume is going to be a waste, and it's going to be harder to use it. Of course, you could compost it and then use it as part of the soil for growing more of these plants, but really you don't probably want to do that because even adding a composting system or putting more material into the composting system you have is going to put more strain on your resources. The next thing they mention is biofortifying the plant with beneficial nutrients, and so they're pointing out that, generally speaking, you could bring vitamins with you on the spacecraft, but if you're in a situation where you need to be able to generate more vitamins, then to have a plant which is actually manufacturing key vitamins, even vitamins not typically found in a potato plant, for instance, would be a huge benefit. And so they're talking about modifying metabolic pathways, introducing new genes which would overexpress certain essential vitamins. Then, of course, there's modifications that they can make to the plant to improve the photosynthetic efficiency and basically just improve the yield of the starch formation overall. And then finally, they talk about enhancing the mineral nutrient use efficiency. And so they want to improve the ability of the roots to take up nutrients. And that's going to be critical because they point out that it's going to be very difficult to bring fertilizer on the spaceship with you. So the idea is that if you could enhance the efficiency with which the plant takes up the nutrients from a fertilizer solution, for instance, then that will, again, make it more efficient. And then the idea is that you could take these plants with you on long-term space missions And then even, when you're colonizing some rocky moon or planet or something like that, you could build greenhouses and actually grow these plants. There's one aspect of this approach that I might disagree with, and this is the part about developing a whole body edible plant. So they say plants whose whole bodies are edible will be desirable for space farms because they can bring humans more food and reduce waste. Which makes sense. They say that potato stems, leaves, and berries are inedible because of the solanine, as we talked about before. The solanine is there to defend against pests and pathogens, but is toxic to humans. In space farming systems with highly controlled environments, solanine-mediated plant resistance would be unnecessary. That's the only part where I'm not so sure, partly because of some articles I've read recently about actually the difficult time that the scientists in different space stations have had in actually controlling the pest and pathogen presence. And they say if solanine were removed, the whole potato plant could potentially become edible, and this is okay because there won't be pathogens present. But I did run into this article a while back, a few weeks ago, and it says, bugs in space, the battle to keep the ISS clean. The International Space Station is teeming with bacteria, so how do you keep a space station clean? And in this, there was this crazy quote. They say in 1998, astronauts aboard the Russian space station Mir were curious to know about the microbes they were sharing their living space with. When they opened an inspection panel, they found large globules of murky water teeming with bacteria, fungi, and mites. Even more concerningly, they discovered organisms eating away at the rubberized seals around the windows and bugs that excrete acid working their way through the electrical cabling. Meanwhile, in 2019, scientists have identified more than 55 species of bacteria on the ISS, which were published in a comprehensive catalog. So this assumption that there won't be pathogens or that we'll have really good control of the pathogens that are in space might not be true. So I do worry if we took like a certain species like potato or something else and then we genetically modified it to, among other things, reduce its resistance to pathogens and pests, then we might find that there's some pest or pathogen that kind of like slips in to the space station or to the spaceship sort of unnoticed at some point and ends up propagating, and then we're on a deep space mission and our harvest fails. So that would be a disaster. I mean, imagine you're out somewhere, you're on a particular trajectory, and you're it's a deep space voyage. You're flying at like 15% the speed of light, and it's going to take who knows how many years to even slow down enough to turn around and go back home, and then your food supply runs out. That would be terrible. So I think that's one thing is, although I think it would be really efficient to just have like one crop that has all the nutrients you need and everything like that, I think that the big danger probably in space agriculture is going to be making sure that the crop doesn't fail. And so hopefully we could have a variety of crops too. And they didn't say anything against that. I think that they're probably assuming that we'll have more than one different species. But I do worry when we start modifying the crops to reduce their natural resistance to pests. That might be one downside. But I think overall this is very cool. It's a very good thought experiment. And I think this could be a viable direction. I'm excited to see if they maybe try to implement some of this stuff going forward. Well, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please go ahead and like and subscribe, and I hope you'll join me again soon in the future. Bye.